Hi everyone. Today we're going to go through an example of a while loop in Python, and we're also going to perform a desk check. Okay, what is a desk check? Okay, a desk check is a method which helps you test your code to see if it's functioning properly by listing and marking and updating all the values stored in the variables. Okay, so let's create a program which adds three numbers. Okay, this is a very simple program. And with the information you have learned before loops, you would write it as follows. You would have a sum, which this is going to store the result of the addition of the three numbers, and this you can initialize to 0. You would ask for the first number from the user using the input statement, converting it to int, and then storing whatever result the user entered in variable number. And then you would add number to the sum, okay, this way with this statement. And you would repeat these two lines of code two more times because we have to add three numbers. At the end, you would print the result. Okay. Now, there is another way to do it, and this way is using a loop and using a while loop. Okay, so imagine if you had to add 100 numbers. Okay, would you be repeating the two lines of code 100 times? No, this is not the way to do it. So you would use a while loop, which makes the code much more elegant and very easily extendable. And how does this look like? Okay, let's take this example here. So we're working on the same example for adding three numbers. Okay, you initialize the sum again to 0. This is the variable that's going to store the sum of the numbers added so far, and at the end the final result. And then you have another variable called count, and this is going to count how many times the loop is going to loop. Okay, so here is the while loop. Okay, so a while loop is built from the keyword while, okay, in Python. And here is the condition. So while this condition is true, you do the following statements which are indented here. Notice the indentation. Okay, so this is what we call the body of the while loop. So the body of the while loop is right here, and this line right here contains the condition of the loop. So this loop is going to loop as long as this condition is true. So we have while count less than 3. Okay, so count begins at 0, and it first checks the condition here. Is count less than 3? Well, it is, because 0 count is 0, so 0 is less than 3. So then we enter the while loop. We execute each of these statements, and then we go back and check the condition again. This is how a while loop is executed in Python. Okay, so these statements in the body are executed, and then execution continues right here at the while loop condition and checks the condition. If this condition is still true, then you execute the statements again. And this process continues until the condition is false, whereas in this case, the execution continues with the statement after the while loop, and in this case, it's this statement here, the print statement. Okay. So one thing to really take good care of when you're creating a while loop is, first of all, you make sure that the condition is correct. Okay, the condition right here is correct. You have the right condition. And whatever variables are involved in this condition, you have to make sure they are somehow updated in the loop. Okay, so you see here, we have count updated in the loop by 1. Because if this variable is not changing in the loop, this means that this is going to end up as an infinite loop, so it's going to run forever. Okay? So this is something that's very important, and this is a mistake that many beginning programmers make. So let's continue with the desk check. Okay, how does this look like? Okay, let me get rid of this. Okay, so the desk check here, let me explain the process. So here is our code from the previous slide, and notice I've created a grid here with columns, where in each column I have placed each variable. So we have three variables here. We have number, we have sum, and we have count. Sorry, I capitalized the words. I should have had it with lowercase because this is important, but okay. This is a mistake. Okay, just disregard this right now. So I have my variables here, and I start with each of the statements in the program. So the first time I see the first statement executed is sum is equal to 0. So this means I put a 0 in the place under sum. Count is 0, so I place a 0 under count. Okay? And I change these values as these values change during the code execution. So in the next step, I see I check while count is less than 3. So I check my table. What is count? Okay, count is 0. It's less than 3. So I ask the user for a number here. Okay, and I input that number. So assume the user entered a 7. Okay, so I put 7 under number, and then I execute the next statement. Sum is the sum plus the number. So sum here is whatever sum was, it was 0, plus number, which was 7. So I enter 7 in the place for sum. And I do the same for count. I increment count by 1. So count was 0, now it becomes 1. So after the first execution of my loop, I have these values stored in number, sum, and count. Okay, so let's continue now with the loop body ends and the condition is checked up here once more. So is count less than 3? Well, yes it is, because count is 1. So it is less than 3. So let's continue with the body again. Again, I ask for a number, okay? And the user enters a 5. So I place this 5 in the variable number. Then I add this number to sum. So sum was 7 plus 5 is 12. So now sum becomes 12. And count becomes 2 because I add 1 to it. Okay, so after the second execution of the loop, the numbers stored in my variables are 5, 12, and 2. So let's check count. Is count still less than 3? Well, yes it is, because it's 2. So I execute the loop once more. I ask for another number and say the user enters an 8. So now we have sum is the previous sum, which was the sum which was 12 plus 8 now becomes 20, and count becomes 3. So the loop again goes back to check the condition. Is count less than 3? No, it's not, because count right now is 3. So 3 is not less than 3. 3 is equal to 3. Okay, so this condition becomes false, and the while loop stops executing. And what happens is that condition, as the control transfers to this statement here. So the result of the sum of the two numbers is printed. Okay, so this result is whatever is stored in variable sum. Okay. So sum is 20 and the result 20 is printed out. Okay. So this is a method that you should use to test your while loops. Okay, just write out the variables on the side. I know it's while loops are and loops in general are a bit confusing. So this is the way to go. If you don't want to write them down with your on a piece of paper, what you can do is, if within the body of this loop here at the end, you can have a print statement to print out all your variables, sum, number, and count. Okay, so you can see as you're testing your program what these variables are, and you have an idea where your mistake is or if it's functioning correctly, and so on and so forth. Okay, I hope this video was helpful. Thank you.